Oaths, tenets, and your own righteousness are the key focus for paladins. In this class guide, we're going to go through everything you need to know about playing a paladin in Baldur's Gate 3. Let's go! Let me know how you're building out your paladin. What sort of oath are you going to pick, and are you going to stick to it? This class guide series is designed to teach you everything you need to know about the mechanics of that class so you can succeed and have success in the game rather than give you a specific build path to follow. So the paladin itself is more focused on a support class, and they are devoted to their oath, which we're going to get into detail in a little bit. Now, they do have full armor proficiencies for light, heavy, and medium armor, as well as shield, martial, and simple weapons. So you've got plenty of options in terms of what sort of a kit you're actually using in terms of your weapons and that sort of a thing. Plus, they can actually cast spells as well as have some good healing options. So they fit a great flexible role as sort of a support, maybe a tank, maybe a martial focused paladin. There's a lot of flexibility in how you want to play a paladin. Now, their primary stat is strength, which is great for a melee focused class like this. However, as a paladin, you need to pay attention to your charisma as well, as charisma is your spell casting modifier. So any spells that you cast, it will be using charisma rather than strength. When picking a race as a paladin, you've got a few options here. Really, you can go anything, it's entirely up to you and your role-playing desires, but you should be thinking about the racial speed. So something like an elf, tiefling, drow, human, gith, half-elf, dragonborn, and half-orc are the ones that have the most racial speed in terms of just their movement speed, because you will need to get into melee range as a paladin often to actually attack targets. You can do some damage from range. It is doable, but it's just something to think about, that you will need to get to the target. So having a class that has a higher just general movement speed is important, but you don't need to worry too much about any of the racial proficiencies in terms of weapons and that sort of a thing, because the paladins have all of those proficiencies basically inbuilt. One thing I will mention is that the half-orc is a great option because of relentless endurance. So if you're downed, instead of being downed, you regain 1 health. Also savage attack, so giving your crits triple damage dice is a massive buff, but also you can combo that with the critical divine smite reaction, so adding even more damage on top of that is a really good benefit for something like that if you're trying to say min-max your paladin. In terms of your subclasses, there are 4 options, but only 3 options that are available in the character creator. Now, the Ancient and Devotion are the most similar, as they're both sort of a good paladin basically, but when you're picking a subclass here, you're really defining your oath and your oath tenets. Now, the oath tenets are essentially what you need to stick to as that paladin to keep your subclass and that subclass's benefits. If you break your oath, you'll become an Oathbreaker paladin, which is a entirely different subclass. It's that 4th option. So the Ancient subclass is more based around the healing aspects, and you gain healing radius as a bonus action. You can heal the allies around you. Devotion is another sort of good paladin with Holy Rebuke. So as an action, you can call upon your oath to grant an ally Vengeful Aura to deal radiant damage to them whenever they're hit. Out of these 2 good subclasses, the Devotion is definitely the weaker one. I've spent most of my time with the Devotion, and most of the footage that you're seeing is a Devotion paladin here, but the Ancient is definitely the stronger one because your Holy Rebuke is an action. Now, when this sort of breaks it down, you want to use that action to actually attack in combat or use something else rather than Holy Rebuke. So as the main part of a Devotion's kit, you won't use it that much, and it's only a little bit of extra damage to whoever the target that it hits. It does change some of the other subclass options as you do level up that you'll get access to as well, but Oath of the Ancients is definitely the stronger one of the good paladin options, because you can cast Healing Radiance as a bonus action, so you can use that bonus action and then still attack. So it doesn't feel like you're sort of wasting your turn on just these sort of smaller spells when you've got plenty of other spells and stuff in your kit that you can use. Oath of Vengeance is sort of like the evil paladin. They sort of have their own view of what righteousness is, but Inquisitor's Might is what they get here, which you and your allies' weapons deal additional radiant damage, and you can daze enemies for 1 turn. This is also a bonus action. Again, it's a fantastic option to use, especially if you have a melee partner in combat. Say you're running Karlach like I am, you can use that for both of you to get that sort of a benefit. Now, the Oathbreaker paladin is, as mentioned, you have to break one of the tenets for the other 3 to get access to the Oathbreaker. Now, the Oathbreaker is sort of a necrotic damage focused paladin. You get Spiteful Suffering, which gives you necrotic damage as an action. It suffers from the same downside as the Devotion, but separate to them, you also get some necrotic based spells plus control undead and dreadful aspect. So the Oathbreaker does have a lot of good things things going for it, especially if you're looking to be sort of that evil focused sort of paladin compared to Oath of Vengeance and you don't want to have an oath. But the oath does play a role in your role playing because you'll have to stick to it if you want to stay as that subclass, so it's just worth calling out. The best skills for a paladin, really, strength is the main ability, which doesn't have a lot of skills, but it does allow you to jump further and move objects in the world, which can come in handy. But I'd be looking at the charisma skills for a paladin, so something like persuasion, performance, intimidation, and deception, because charisma is your spellcasting modifier. This is the same for your background, though you can sort of pick something that's more based around your role-playing aspects if you do choose to. So the leveling up process as a paladin, there's a couple of specific things that I want to call out. First is at level 2, which is when the paladin really starts to succeed. So you get access to Divine Smite, which will spend a skill slot to add radiant damage to your damage effect. Now this can also be used as a reaction to then add Divine Smite as a reaction effect to a critical hit, which will then add that radiant damage, which will add heaps of damage to that effect, which I highly recommend. You've also get access to a fighting style, which is where you sort of decide what your paladin's going to be, whether you're going to be defensive, dueling, grey weapon fighting, or protection. I personally think that protection is a really good option for like a tank build, which is what I'm going for my Oath of Ancients paladin that we're sort of looking at here in this footage. When picking the spells that you get access to here, I would be looking at something like Shield of Faith to add armor class to your allies. Compelled Duel is really good as well, just to make, say, whatever the biggest threat in that encounter, make sure it's actually attacking you, which is what you want to focus on because you've always got that high amount of armor class. Cure Wounds is good for a little bit of extra healing. The different types of Smite, like Thunderous and Smearing, are also good for different types of damage encounters where, say, enemies may be resistant to certain types of damage. They're really good for those encounters for extra damage. Heroism and Bless, and you've definitely got the freedom to pick here, but it's really up to you. But for the most part, it is dependent on like the subclass that you go for. But being that we're focusing on like sort of Ancients, like a good paladin here, those are the options that you'll go. But say if you're playing an Oathbreaker or a Vengeance or something, it's obviously a little bit more. At level 4, you will gain a feat. Now, this is entirely dependent on how you want to build out your character, but in the full game, there is a lot of really good heavy armor. So going the heavy armor master to increase your strength by 1, but also so incoming damage from non-magical attacks also decreased by 3 when you're wearing heavy armor, so it reduces the amount of damage you take, is actually really valuable. Like there are plenty of great heavy armor options in the main game that you can go and grab. At level 5, you'll get another attack. So when you do make an attack, you'll also be able to gain an additional attack every single turn. And then at level 8, you gain another feat, which you can grab here. I like Sentinel for this sort of sword and board paladin. So essentially what that means is when an enemy within melee range attacks an ally, you can use a reaction to attack them or some various other effects as well. You get advantage on your opportunity attacks. So it gives you options to sort of attack for free, which is really beneficial when you are in melee range a lot and sort of playing that protector role, which we're talking about for the paladin here. A couple of quick tips for the paladin: tick all of the reaction options when you do bring up your reactions. So rather than them just triggering on their own, you can actually see what's triggering and save your reactions for certain types of things that you want in combat, especially the one to add Divine Smite to critical hits. Definitely tick this because you absolutely want to do that every time that comes up because of the amount of damage it does do. You can also dual wield hand crossbows in your offhand like weapon slot, so you can use a crossbow as a bonus action if you don't have something else you want to use for that bonus action for that turn. And paladins excel at fighting undead, fae, and fiends, and there are tons of them in Baldur's Gate 3. Make sure you're right clicking and then examining enemies to see what they actually are. So if you're using, say, Divine Smite on the right targets that are undead, you get that extra radiant damage, and there is a huge benefit to fighting those targets, and there's a lot of them in Baldur's Gate 3, so just make sure you're checking that out. But let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Thank you guys for watching this video till the end. Thank you to our members for supporting the channel. My name is Norza, and I hope you have a great day.